Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Final Tackle podcast, and we've actually got a very special guest. He is Scott Hill. He played 177 games and is a Melbourne Storm original. He also played for the Hunter Mariners, the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, and also the London Harlequins / Broncos, who are unfortunately a now defunct club in the Super League. Thank you for joining us here today, mate.
Great to be here, CJ. Always good to share stories and my experience, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, I mean, I love having the old boys on, because I love hearing stories and love hearing and talking career, like about their career with them. So let's get started. You made your debut for the Bulldogs in 1996 against the Bunnies. What was that like for you getting your first grade debut?
Yeah, long time ago now. But no, it was a great experience. I think I was really privileged to be part of that Bulldog side, and the great Terry Lamb had the opportunity of playing his last 5 games, which
Oh wow.
um, was a real privilege, and a legend of the game and a legend of Canterbury Bankstown. So to be part of that side and to have an opportunity, it was as I said, a privilege.
No, that's fair. That's fair. One second, I just got to do a quick cough. Sorry about that. I just woke up. And then you shifted over to the Super League when the Super League war started happening with the Hunter Mariners, who only had one season. What was that like for you, switching obviously from obviously the Bulldogs to the Hunter Mariners? Was it a different setting and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it was. I suppose I was already at the Hunter Mariners at the start of '96,
Okay.
and then Super League. I was part of the under-20 squad,
Okay.
of the 19s, and um, the competition obviously got cancelled that year, the first year,
Mm-hmm.
due to court proceedings. So then I went down to Sydney to the Bulldogs because we were already signed with Super League, and I actually was put out at in the Bankstown competition playing under 18s out there, um, and after playing a couple of years in first grade in the in the bush,
Yep.
that was a sort of a big step backwards. I was there for about 6 or 7 weeks, and I said to Mark Hughes, I said, if I'm going to keep playing here, I might as well go home. So,
Yep.
fortunately enough, I was pushed up into the Canterbury under 19s, and then luckily enough got seen by Chris Anderson and moved up into first grade. But then, obviously, because Super League started the second year,
Mm.
I was already signed with the Hunter Mariners, so
So you were
I went back.
contractually obligated to go to them, were you?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to go back. I left as a 19 in the 19 squad and went back in the top squad. So they were all new guys for me to meet, to be a part of. And look, that year was a great experience, and I still put it down as one of my most memorable years at the Hunter Mariners. It was such a great experience.
That's awesome. Honestly, that's really awesome. You then became, you could say, one of the inaugural because you're actually Melbourne Storm number 5. You were, yeah, an inaugural member of the Melbourne Storm who have gone on to pave their way into NRL history. You know, winning the grand final the year after they entered, going on to win many more. Even with asterisks, they still won on the day. Um, what was it like to you personally to more or less, you could say, be part of history and groundbreaking history with that type of club? And what was it like for your time at the club?
Yeah, look, it was a great experience, and I was number 6, not number 5
On
too.
number 6, sorry. I was looking at the all players list thing and it said it
Yeah,
was
no,
number 5. Sorry about that.
no, that's okay. Um, yeah, so it was definitely a different environment to after coming from sort of a town like Newcastle that's rugby league born and bred. But it was sort of, I remember first getting down there. The first games we played, they had to sort of put the rules up on the big screen for people to understand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what was going on and different things like that. So it definitely was, a very a different environment, but the supporters were great. From day one, we had a great base supporter base. and that's always good. And obviously, being successful makes a big difference.
Oh, for sure. It would have been very difficult, I reckon, if your team wasn't as successful in the early few years, especially being down in an AFL dominated state.
Yeah, it was. So, it was funny. It was people used to even near when I left in '06. Some people didn't even know who the Melbourne Storm were. So,
Oh, wow.
it's yeah, and it's a different environment. So, but look, it was just a great experience. We had 7 of us from the Hunter Mariners. I think there was about 12 boys that come across from the Perth Reds, and a few sprinkled in there like Glenn Lazarus, Tawara Nicow from clubs elsewhere.
And
So
Stephen Kearney and all that, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it was a really sort of tight knit group. Um, you know, we did everything sort of together, whether it be on the training paddock, on the field, and then off the field. Because we didn't really have relationships outside of that. So I think that in a way um, helped us build a strong bond amongst the group. Um, and then, we had a really good administrator in John Rebo. We had Chris Johns as a CEO and Chris Anderson as a coach. So they'd all been very successful at other clubs.
Yeah, you more or less can't go wrong there for a starting club.
No, so they had a lot of experience and had the sort of the knowledge and experience to bring a team together. So yeah, and I guess the rest is history. Now we were very successful early,
Have more or
and
less kept the success, even if it hasn't been silverware at the end of the year, still been very successful regardless, in my opinion.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, with that club's, you feel proud of being part of building such a successful organisation.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And obviously, touching on your rep time, you played a few Origins for New South Wales, and you played quite a few games for Australia. Um, Obviously, I got to ask the obvious question: what's the intensity level like at State of Origin compared to club games and grand finals and whatnot?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit like a grand final. It's pretty intense where you got the best 17 play or 34 players in the world going hard at each other, with a lot of history and a lot of emotion involved in the game. The crowd's involved in it, and yeah, it's funny. It goes that quick that when you're playing, it's sort of over before you're even out there. So
Yeah, like the first siren goes, and then next minute the last siren's gone.
yeah, that's it. So it's pretty intense. It's pretty confronting for players, but it's a great experience, and it's a great spectacle for the crowd. That's for sure. And to be a part of Origin is yeah, it was a great experience, and something that that'll always be one of my great memories, especially winning 3-0 in
Oh,
2000.
that's always a good thing for any State of Origin side. Obviously, not the one that loses, but yeah, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So yeah, no, that was a good year 2000.
Yes, yes. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't because I'm a Queensland fan. But as I said, for anyone who gets that 3-0, that whitewash, it's always a great year. Um, and speaking of great years, obviously you played for Australia quite a few times. What was it like to pull on the green and gold? And did you hold that personally in more higher regard than New South Wales, or was it just a matter of you sort of just took it as it came, sort of thing?
Yeah, it was a little bit like that. I actually um, I played for Australia before I played Origin.
Oh
So
wow.
in 2000, I played the Anzac Test
Hmm.
against New Zealand, um, and that was before Origin started in 2000. So yeah, I think personally playing for your country is probably um, a higher individual achievement,
Hmm.
I suppose. I guess you get through. The other thing, you get through the top New South Wales and top 17 Queenslanders to be picked in that final 17 of your country. So it's definitely one of my individual, I guess, greatest achievements. And then to go on that year in 2000 to go on and win a World Cup,
Yeah. Wow.
um, that was a good accomplishment, I should say.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Now, obviously, steering a bit clear away from your career before we go back into your career. What's your current beer of choice at the moment?
Current beer of choice. What do I like? A bottle beer. I always like a pale ale. So
Okay.
um, I'm trying to
So, like
think.
wild yak or
Yeah,
sort of stuff?
Wild Jack's probably a good version of what I sort of enjoy. But I also like Great Northern's a great refreshing
Yeah.
lager. So
Yeah.
it's good after a hard day's work. That's for sure.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. And speaking of work, what are you doing these days with yourself?
Yeah, no, I've 4 years ago I bought a self storage and removals business up at Karoi, which is sort of 20 minutes west of Noosa.
Okay.
So I've
Oh,
been
so
in
you're
that
based in
business.
Queensland?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. Based in Queensland, nice and healthy and safe at the moment.
Yep.
um,
Yep. That's paramount.
so yeah, so I've been enjoying that. I've built the business up in that area, and I'm sort of in the process of looking at of putting it on the market and selling the business.
Okay. And what are you thinking of going into after the business is sold?
Yeah, I'm just at that stage, I guess, in my life where I'm sort of looking at really digging my hands into things that I enjoy and pretty passionate about. Look,
You gotta
I'm
love
sort
what
of
you do.
looking. Yeah, that's it. I genuinely miss the game a lot. I probably retired early at 31, and so it's about 12 years since I retired. But I'm
Wow.
sort of,
Do you think you could have gone a
um,
bit longer? Like maybe 33, 34?
yeah, I could have stayed in London for another 3 years, but I just was at that stage where I just about had enough, And
Yeah.
yeah, in hindsight, yeah, you probably wish you had have gone a little bit longer. And Craig Bellamy's has a great saying. Says to all these old players, he says, "You're a long time retired," And yeah, it's something that I probably didn't listen to as much as what I probably should have. But now I'm at that stage where I'd like to, since retiring, I've also after before I bought the removals business, I've published a couple of books,
Yeah, and
interviewed.
by the way, to anyone who's listening, I'll pop the links to those where they can buy them in the description of this episode.
Yeah, so we sort of I interviewed all the top coaches and the captains around Australia and different sports about managing people, leadership, and yeah, very much they're really good resources through business and so forth. But yeah, it was a great experience to be able to sit down with all those coaches and captains and get their insights on what's made them successful, what's made the teams that they work with successful, and what are the frameworks that work. So for me, it's again, I was very fortunate of being part of a really good team culture.
Hmm.
Um, System framework that we used at the Melbourne Storm that virtually has carried that club to where they are now, and
Yeah.
it's very successful, and that's an area that I'm pretty passionate about.
So you'd like to get
Work,
into the sort of coaching type aspect, or
yeah, sort of coaching, leadership, and you know, alignment, getting teams to work in from a behavioural framework
okay,
that works well for them. Yeah, you couldn't say that I come from a pretty successful framework that's been pretty
definitely.
good for 20 years at the Storm. But I miss the skill development of rugby league as well. I suppose it's especially with the new rule changes.
Mm.
It brings halves into the game a lot more, and it's a real shame. I think the last sort of 15 sort of
More
years.
or less since you retired, or
Yeah,
left the NRL sort of thing.
yeah, the game's become a very structured um, framework.
POS is
Players.
what I would have called a very structured POS in my opinion. I switched to watching Super League the last few years because it's just been the NRL's been too, as you said, structured and stop start, and I'm all for the free flowing. And so when they reintroduce the six again, and all that sort of stuff, mate, as I'm sure from a fan point, as you can imagine, it's amazing. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, it does. Well, it just opens up so many more opportunities for
Mm,
halves to take advantage of. Fatigue comes into the game a lot. That the extra tackle, which in a way is it's what you call the compound effect. You play the ball quick, one tackle, you play the ball quick again. Sometimes you get another 6 if you do it again. So the opportunity to have the ball a lot more in your hands, but also for young halves to take advantage of tired forwards, and defensive lines being fatigued. There's a lot more thinking that comes into the game, and I guess. Yeah, I wish these rules were out when I was playing, because I suppose that was one of the strengths of my game was, you know, having an advantage of reading what's in front,
Yeah.
defensive lines, and then being able to take advantage when those cues present themselves. So, um, yeah, so there's a few areas that I'm looking at tapping back into the NRL at some capacity. What that is, I'm not quite sure. I suppose there's a number of areas where I can assist clubs, and that may be, whether it be from a leadership framework that way, but also direct skill development,
Yep.
whether it be at in the development areas or even with the top teams. Yeah, so I'm sort of as I mentioned, really at that stage of my life where I want to start, working and doing things I'm really passionate about. So,
Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
100%
be
fair.
interesting to see where the space goes, and I get my business sold. Anything's possible.
Yeah, well, as like I'm gonna edit this bit out that I'm saying now, but as I said, I'm putting the message out to people as I told you I would. I'm trying my, as in, I'm just asking, do they know if
Yeah,
either positions are coming up, or obviously because COVID there wouldn't be many at the moment.
yes,
So I said, do you, like I've asked, actually some people who I've messaged have said they know you quite well, such as Brett White, Feensy, all them.
yeah,
Feeney actually said, when COVID is over, he thinks there should be a few jobs going up in Queensland way. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so he said he'll text you directly whenever he finds out stuff for that. So, but as I said, I'll try my best. Obviously, no promises, but anything I can do to help, I'll try my best to anyway.
No, I really appreciate it, mate. Really do.
No, that's all good. Now that click was to help with the segue. um, now let's get to some more fun ones. How do you like your steak cooked?
Steak, I'm a medium rare guy. I like it
Okay.
with a little bit of blood coming out of it.
Yep, but not too
Yeah, it's
mooing.
no, no, no. It's only way to eat a steak, I think. But
Mm.
others think differently. But that's my favourite.
Oh, it's my favorite too. Mick Crocker, as I spoke to him a few weeks ago, loves it blue, and I'm like, that's more or less mooing.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's pretty close. I'm a little bit more cooked than blue, but it's pretty
Hmm.
close.
Yep. What's your current movie or show that you're like addicted to or binging sort of thing at the moment on Netflix during this COVID BS?
I've well, I've watched it out. I watch Have you seen Ricky Gervais? It's The Afterlife,
Yes, I love that show so much.
which is good. I've watched all that, but then I went from that into Derek.
Yes, yes, I
The
love
other,
Derek as well.
ah, they're my two favorites. Ricky Gervais is just a classic,
Yes.
and
Oh,
they're
mate, talking right up my
they're,
alley.
they're classic shows. I just laugh. Yeah, so Derek and Kev and the boys. So
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I'm not going to spoil anything to anyone who's not seen the shows, but definitely watch one of the first few scenes of Afterlife in season one, where he literally mouths back at a ginger kid. Scott, you'll know what I'm talking about.
yeah, walking past the school gate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, such a good show. Season three's been announced. I don't know exactly when it's going to drop, but they said it should be next year sometime. So I'm really keen for that. Wow, that's awesome. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
superpower. Um, I'm just trying to think.
It doesn't have to
I'd like,
be
I
flying.
reckon,
It could
I
be
reckon
anything.
being, I reckon being, I reckon being invisible would be good.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. Yeah. Um.
Um,
Yeah. So go ahead.
yeah, it gives you a good opportunity to go places where probably people don't think that you're there.
Yeah, and you could be a fly on the wall, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um. Now, this is actually a question from one of our podcast sponsors, SkyeSpark Electrical. So I've got to do a little quick plug for them.
Yeah.
If anyone needs any electrical work on the Central Coast, all the way up to Hornsby Way and Nelson's Bay, go through SkyeSpark Electrical. They'll give you the best prices. They ask, what advice would you give to your younger self to go through life, knowing what you know now?
Yeah. Be honest with yourself. I think more than anything, if you're in control of what you do, and I think the biggest thing in life is, whether you have ups and downs and so forth, you are in control of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So more than anything, be true to yourself. Don't cut corners for other people, and know that, in a way, you are in control of your destiny. Don't expect others to help you. Work hard and trust yourself.
Okay, wow, that's really good advice in general. So, wow. Did you have any pre-game routines or night before rituals? And if not, who do you remember possibly having the weirdest one that you've ever seen during your time in the NRL and Super League?
It's funny, I don't really remember blokes that had it, but I suppose, did I have any routines? Not really. One thing I did do. I was never one that went into the sheds early.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably, if anything, I was always in the sheds late. I just used to sit out and watch the game that was going on before, and then I just go in, get strapped, and go straight out to warm up. I wasn't probably someone that sat down and thought about things too much.
So you'd be a bit more relaxed, more so you could say.
Yeah, relaxed, and the more I thought, probably the worse I was. So I did all my thinking and planning during the week at training. That's when that was for. I should just turn up, get strapped, and then get straight out. Yeah, that's it. So that was probably something that the strappers used to hate, because I used to get both shoulders strapped and ankles and everything, and I'd be in there just before warm up. They'd be having to rush me to get out. So but blokes that that did anything different, I'm not sure. You probably find there's blokes that put a certain sock on before the other. I was never really a superstitious person, so I guess I didn't recognise a lot of that with others. So.
Yeah, no, that's fair. More or less, you took care of your own individual prep and was more focused on that than anything. Yeah.
Yep. So can't help you with any of those.
No, that's totally fair. But there are some doozies that I've heard from some. Mick Crocker used to have a spew as every time the 2-minute bell went. Was it David Clemmer has to be the last one off the bus, all that sort of stuff. It's really interesting to find out, and it really helps me, and I hope it really helps convey to the listeners and viewers that players are literally they're just dudes. They're just guys going about their job, going about their work. Now, what did you find were the biggest differences between the NRL and the Super League when you went over to the Harlequins?
Yeah, I think defence was probably one of the main differences. The NRL defence was a lot tighter, a lot more controlled, and defensive patterns were a lot better. I think a lot of that, but too, that the Super League play the balls were a lot quicker.
Definitely they are, yeah.
There was definitely, you weren't allowed to wrestle or tighten around the ruck as much in Super League as what we did in the NRL. And I think more than anything, the other level is, in Super League, you probably got your top 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah, and then the rest are sort of stragglers.
That are pretty dominant. And those 3 or 4 teams they'd be probably the bottom section of the NRL, or the mid to bottom section.
Yeah.
Whereas, in the, and then, so in Super League, your top teams, they can play it 60%, 70% and still win most weeks. Whereas in the NRL, you don't play it near 90 or 100%, you're going to get beat. So the consistency of high level football is probably the difference. It's I enjoyed it over there, and it was a good experience, and it was good sharing my experience with some of the players that I played with at London, and it was a memorable time.
That's awesome. And one more topic before we get into do you have any advice for kids sort of thing, is Which teams, in your opinion, while you were playing, were the toughest for you to go up against mentally and physically?
Yeah, I think Brisbane was always a side that was you had to be up on your game, and it's fortunate enough at the Storm we were always up against Brisbane. Our
Mm-hmm.
record
Awesome.
against Brisbane was he's very good and still is very good. So they were always a challenge. The top sides. I think physically, when you went to Auckland, you always knew you were going to come home pretty sore. Um, they always had a
Yeah.
big mobile pack, and it was always wet and slippery sort of conditions over in Auckland. So that was always one team I always used to remember, that you knew that when you were coming back from Auckland, you'd be pretty sore the next day. So they were always a challenge. Those two sides. Um, yeah, coming up against sides with top players like Andrew Johns and the Knights are always a tough competition. It's when they got good playmakers, it was always a challenge. To play against those sides. So they're probably the ones that stand out the most to me.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Honestly, that's fair enough, and that's all I've got listed, except for obviously one last one. What advice would you give to any kids or teenagers or whatever who are hoping to make it in the first grade, big leagues one day?
Yeah, it's always as I said before, is be true to yourself, work hard within yourself. Success comes from you're obviously talented to be in that space, but talent won't get you to the NRL.
Oh, exactly. I'm a firm believer in hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. So hard work, um, continual improvement. Always don't be satisfied with a victory. There's always areas of improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all comes down to that Melbourne Storm mentality that we had. It was hard work, determination to be better tomorrow.
Okay.
And be very learn to be very more process driven, especially if you're coming through at a younger age. Don't be worried about if you win or you lose. It's all about what you've done in your position,
Mm-hmm.
how you can be
If you've
better
had a
next
good
week.
individual game, how you
Yeah,
can improve your individual game. Yep.
absolutely. Always have some KPIs and some areas where that can be measured, and then slowly just raise your level of commitment to it. So, but more than anything, hard work will get you there, and commitment. Everyone's got to have that persistence as well, and resilience. You're going to have in life. You're going to lose more than what you win, and that's
Hmm.
fact. But it's how you deal with those losses. For me, I don't see loss as a negative. I see it as an opportunity.
Yeah,
Um,
an opportunity
and
to
then,
learn from, sort of thing.
yeah, learn from and better yourself. So if you have that mentality, you'll do well in rugby league. You'll do well in anything. So
Yeah.
that's my little bit of advice.